Hello there, TikTokers. I'm Black Bright News on YouTube, and yes, I'm doing this little series of videos to do with being taken advantage of, Christians who are taken advantage of. This one is about being approached by somebody who doesn't have their papers. Now, we know that there's a lot of females in the church, single women in the church, who are very vulnerable. They're vulnerable because, number one, they would like to have a husband. Number two, they are usually doing pretty well for themselves, and they're easy targets for predators. Now, you'll find people from different parts of the world. I mean, if you're born in the UK or if you've been here for a very long time, you'll know that the British man is not going to marry a woman until they're in their 60s or 70s. It just doesn't happen. For some reason, the British black man doesn't marry early. So what you'll find is you'll find a lot of black women in the church and seeking a husband, and they can't find one. So what better opportunity is it for foreign nationals to enter that territory and look for young ladies and claim that, they're okay, their papers are in order, and only to find out down the line, after you've crossed the line sometimes, that they don't have their papers, or their papers need to be finalised, whatever it is. If you marry somebody whose papers are not finalised and they need you to finalise it, you might think, okay, by marrying this person, I'm helping them out, I'll have a husband and everything will be hunky-dory. Things have changed now with regard to marrying a foreign national. If they don't have indefinite leave to remain or limited leave to remain, in other words, if they're not legally in the country, and even then, in certain circumstances, they have to go back to their originating country if they want to marry you. Now, if they don't have their papers, and they want you to marry them in order for them to have their papers, that could be very, very dangerous. And why I say that is because now anybody who wants to get married to a foreign national has to go back to their country, their originating country, to get married. And then they have to apply from that country for them to come back into the UK in order to do their final paperwork. Now, I've known people who are born in this country, white and black, who've married a non-British person and have gone back to the country of the person and have got married 10, 15 years later. The Home Office still hasn't processed the paperwork. That means that in order to maintain that marriage, you're going to have to visit that person constantly. Now, the example I've given you was a white lady who married a Jamaican. And she found herself having to go to Jamaica, or wanting to go to Jamaica, in order to maintain the relationship every 6 months. It got expensive. On top of that, doing that for 1 year, maybe 2 years, it's not too bad. But when it gets into the 3rd year, the 4th year and the 5th year, and you do not see any way that your husband is going to be able to come to the UK to live with you, then you're on shaky ground. So now you can say, oh, I'm married, but where's your husband? Your husband is in his originating country, cannot come into the UK. The UK are discouraging those kind of marriages because they believe that they're scam marriages. Whether they are or not, whether that relationship is genuine or not, the only way they say you can prove that it's genuine is by be willing to go back to the originating country, marry them and stay over there with them. They don't want you here with your foreign person. So all I'm saying is that it could look like an attractive option, marrying somebody who doesn't have their papers, but it's an expensive option. You're going to have to show that you can look after them totally independently, even if they haven't got any money. Even if they've got money, you're still having to show that you've got enough to fund them. I think up to 18,000. You have to show your bank accounts, how much you've got in there. 18,000 is usually the amount they expect your husband or your wife to be able to earn, as opposed to having that in cash in the bank. So they have to be able to bring in an income of over 18,000. You're supposed to have savings up to goodness knows how much. And of course, you're supposed to, if you're going to bring somebody over, they prefer that you own a property as opposed to rent. And there's a lot of stuff that you're going to have to do. So you have to think twice about marrying somebody who doesn't have their papers. It is not easy. And it is very expensive. Like I said, you've got to think about the travelling, you've got to think about the visa fees, and then you're more likely to end up taking on all of that burden, because when these people come from abroad, a lot of them don't have access to that kind of money. So what kind of person are you taking on as your husband? It's not so bad if they're born in this country and they can actually get the benefits from this country, but if you're marrying somebody from abroad, it's a very, very tricky situation to put yourself in. And like I said, all that to get a husband. When you're thinking about, I know a lot of people are saying is, how am I going to get a husband? Where am I going to get a husband from? That shouldn't be your main priority. If you're thinking about husband, or even men thinking about wife, you're going to choose wrongfully, because you're going to choose with your emotion, and you're going to start thinking of any kind of option in order to get one. And that's why you end up in this kind of situation, whether you either marry somebody who's not legally in the country, or if they're legally in the country, their visa is running out, and they've found you, and they're looking for somebody who they can marry so that their visa can be extended. It's not working with the Home Office anymore. That's all I'm saying. Just look into it, do your homework, go into www.gov.uk. I think if you search for marrying a foreign national, or that should, come up with, give you some information, but just check it out. Don't just do it willy-nilly, because the law changes every 26 days. The law changes, and particularly the immigration rules. That changes all the time. So I'm just putting it out there. It's very easy to be taken in, very easy to be charmed, especially when you're feeling vulnerable and you're feeling desperate and you're getting on in years. Don't be taken in. That's all I've got to say. Bye-bye.